Hey guys, so long story short, this car has about 43,000 miles. And the other day I was driving, and I've been noticing this for about a good week or two now. When I brake, I can feel my steering shake quite a bit, and I'm guessing it's the rotors. For some reason, some of the C300s, especially the ones without the AMG package, are notorious for having those brake rotors warp fairly fast. So what I'm going to do today is go ahead and replace the front rotors, and we'll show you how that's done.
Alright, so the tools needed for the job. Obviously you're going to need a breaker bar just so you can remove the wheels. This is a 1/2 inch, and to get the wheels out you're going to need a 70mm socket, and then you can have a 3/8 wrench just to be on the safe side, just so you can get the caliper bolts out. To get the caliper bolts out, you're going to need a 13mm socket. When it comes to the big mounting brackets, you're going to need a 21mm, and to get to the bolt on the rotor you're going to need a T30 bit, as you could see, the ones with the stars. And then to remove the wiring sensor you're going to need a E10 socket, and that looks like this. Well, you're obviously going to need a pair of C-clamps, I guess that's what you call it, vice grips, some penetrating liquid, a jack, and maybe some okay, it's in Spanish. Okay, brake and parts cleaner. Alright, so let's start with the obvious, jacking up the car. Well, for the first timers, when it comes to a German car, finding the jack points might be a little tricky. So here's what I did. The jack point that I'm gonna use is right here. Oops, there we go. But my jack is not gonna reach there, so I'm gonna jack it right here on top of this beam. So let's try that. Alright, so the tire is out. What we're going to do next is go ahead and take out the torque screw. That's just going to make our life a lot easier before we dismantle everything else. Over here we have these 30mm bolts, one on the top, one underneath. We're going to take those two, and then obviously we're going to have to take off this brake pad wiring sensor, which is also sitting on a, I think, a T series screw. I'm not really sure, but we'll get to that in just a second. And that will be that. Okay, so just to avoid this bar hitting the car, I'm just gonna throw my jeans over it. So even if it hits, it's not gonna throw a dent on the car. So that's just a well, that didn't go so well. Alright, so that's the dirt. So these torque screws are usually very tricky. For the most part they get stuck. If you're lucky it might just come out. So what I do is, just to have my chances high, I usually have everything intact before I remove the torque screw. This way I just have a better chance of putting all the pressure on just the torque screw. And you know what, looks like it's my lucky day. This guy seems to be loosening up. Now, just to be on the safe side, I would usually take breaks if I realize that the torque screw is getting stuck. The reason for this is you don't want to overheat the screw and break it inside. But looks like we got lucky. All right. Okay. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and remove the brake pad wiring sensor. The brake pad wiring sensor on these mugs are on the passenger side, at least for the front. So that's that. Let's start off with removing this guy. Okay, there we go. There we go. I am going to remove this now. Seems like it's sitting on some kind of a clip. And I think I'm gonna have to pause here till I figure this one out. Ready?
Really?
Oh, okay. So so we're gonna have to dismantle this sensor from this female port. So let me try to see if I can get that out. Okay, there we go. All right, so what I did was I see how this metal unit is locking this connector. All I did was pry it a little bit so I can pull it out. So that's that. We're gonna try to take the caliper out, and for that I'm gonna have to remove these 30mm over here and the 30mm on the bottom. Now usually when they loosen up, they get stuck right here, and if you notice, this right here probably is like a 17mm. So you can lock it and then loosen this guy. But in my case, this bolt is really skinny, so I don't have a wrench that fits there. So we'll see how that goes. I might have to use my vice strips. I think I just tightened it. Oops. Okay, there we go. Alright, so if you notice, this is rotating. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use my vice strips. These vice grips should help me get the job done. You don't want to damage the rubber seals here. Okay. These are usually not that tight. Or maybe this is just a newer car. Okay, so that's that. I'll loosen this one now. Now, just to make my life easier, I would have this screwed in just a little bit, so that way when I loosen this guy, my brake caliper is not gonna flip around. Oops. Sorry guys. Alright, so that's that bolt. Okay, so I forgot to mention, but it's good to have one of these with you, because when we remove the caliper, we obviously don't want it hanging on the I forgot the name. Okay, so let's try to remove this guy. Oops, let me take that out. Okay, so that was our wiring sensor connector. I'm gonna get that out of our way, and then I'm gonna try to connect this with maybe with my suspension bracket, like that. So that way it's not really putting all the weight on the hose for the brake. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I might just try to adjust this just a little bit so I can get a better angle for the camera. Let's see if that'll work out. Well, that didn't quite work out. 1 millimeter bolts out so that we can remove this mounting bracket. Once we remove this, we can pull the rotor out. Okay, so that's that 20 millimeter socket. So this one's usually a little tight. Oops. Ooh, that was close. All right. So there you go. The rotor is out. Bolts are out. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to change the brake pad and obviously mount the new brake pad wiring sensor. So the way these things usually go in and out is they're just sitting on clips, so if you pull it out, it'll just come right out. Well, we're not going to do anything with this guy because I'm going to replace it. So I have a new one sitting right here which will go on this brake pad. So what's important is that you match the brake pad shape exactly with the way it's mounted on the car. If you notice, this is the brake pad sitting on the other side, but it doesn't really have a groove as deep as this, nor does it have the hole for the wiring pad sensor. So the mounting is fairly straightforward. I match them like this and I push it in, and there you go. Easy peasy. Alright, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to remove these all brake pads. I'm going to clear this, clean this unit with some brake parts cleaner, and obviously grease it, especially these ends, and then go ahead and mount it on the car. Rotor onto the car. Oh, it's heavy. Okay. All right. So there you go. I'll try to get the torque screw in if I can find it. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and mount the torque screw in. This is gonna hold the rotor in place while we install the bracket. So I'm not gonna tighten it too hard, just a little bit, just so I can get it all aligned. That's really the functionality of this thing. They're supposed to reduce the vibration caused by the rotor, and then obviously help you install the rotor when you're doing that. Guys, I'm gonna go ahead and mount this bracket on now. Takes that 21 millimeter bolt that I previously took out. Should be fairly easy of a job to do, hopefully. But I mean, on a video, life's a little harder. Okay, there we go. Oh, that should be tight. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and mount the brake pad onto this now. Let's see how that goes in. Okay, there we go. Alright, so the next step is to go ahead and get this caliper over here and install it here. But before we do that, I'm gonna have to push the piston in so that I can get the caliper to sit properly. Alright, so the piston went back in, and I'm gonna remove this C-clamp now. Oops. Alright, so I'm gonna slide the wiring pad sensor inside this, and then I'm gonna mount them like this. Okay, so get the bolts now. All right, one side in. Now the bottom goes right there. All right, remember it's a 30 millimeter, so we're gonna use that to tighten this up. Might need the vice grips like we used earlier. Yeah. Okay. Do the same with the bottom. Okay, I think that's tight enough. Alright, so now we're gonna go ahead and connect the wiring pad sensor and mount that bracket, which is sitting right here. So let's get that over here and get the bolt in. Oh, actually, before I do that, I might just go ahead and connect this. Yeah, there you go, that's connected. I'll go ahead and connect this. Yeah, so we don't need to tighten this too much, just good enough is fine. It is plastic, you don't want to crack it, so there you go. I think that's just fine, and we are done. Well, once I mount the tires.